everyone. I'm Poonam Sharma, your science teacher. Welcome you all another interesting chapter of biology, the fundamental unit of life. Children, till now we have covered chemistry chapters. Now in today's class, I'll start with biology chapter. First of all, what is biology? Any idea? Do you know what is biology? How can we define this? Or in short form, we say it is bio. So biology basically it is the study of living organisms, whether they are plants, animals. When we study their anatomy, so that study of those living organisms is biology. Now in today's class, I'll start with chapter number 1 of biology, which is fundamental unit of life. Here the term the fundamental unit. Fundamental unit means the basic unit of life, the base of life. As we know that all living organisms are made up of a particular type of structure, and some organisms are very simple, some are complex. So if we talk about complex organisms or simple organisms, they are made up of certain type of substance, and that is known as cell. So here we'll study about that cell in detail. So cell is a fundamental unit of life. As we know that our body is a very complex one. Human's body and the animal's body are the complex one. And this complex body structure is made up of cell. How this cell came into existence? How can we say that cell is the basic unit of life or the fundamental or the structural unit of life? As we know that if we want to construct a building, for that construction we need some bricks. That is the foundation of a building. So for the foundation of our body we need some base, that strong base, and that strong base is made up of these cells. So we'll study about their discovery, types, structure, composition of cell in detail in this chapter. There are certain scientists who work on the this concept of cell. One of those renowned scientists is Robert Hooke. In 1665, he discovered that there are certain small compartment-like structures are present, and those compartment-like structures are known as cell. And this cell word came from the word cellular. Cellular, which means small compartment, small room or small compartment. He took a thin slice of a cork. Then he observed that thin slice under the microscope. When he observed that thin slice of cork under the microscope, he observed that there are small rooms present which are bounded by a membrane. And he observed this kind of structure in a microscope, and he compared this structure with the honeycomb. And he gave name to these small room or the compartment like structures as cell. So Robert Hooke was a scientist who first discovered cell in a piece of cork. So he took thin slice of cork and observed it under the microscope, and when he observed, he saw these small compartment like structures in it, and which he gave this name cell to it. After the discovery of cell, many scientists work on this, and then they came on the conclusion there are different scientists. Robert Hooke first is Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Leeuwenhoek. Second is Robert Brown. Have Robert Brown. Then we have Sheldon and Szechuan. These are the different scientists which work on the cell. Then we have Rudolf Virchow. So these are the scientists which are associated with the cell. Then we have Knoll and Raska. First, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he also discovered cells in pond water. He discovered free living cells, in pond water, and he observed these cells in pond water under a light microscope. Then Robert Brown discovered nucleus in a cell. And what is this nucleus, how it functions, we'll study about all its components in detail later. Then we have Sheldon and Szechuan. They gave cell theory in which they proposed different aspects of a cell. Then we have Rudolf Virchow. He expanded this cell theory which was given by Sheldon and Szechuan. Then we have Knoll and Raska. They discovered microscope, electron microscope. So these are the scientists and these are the discoveries done by them. Robert Hooke discovered cell in 1665. Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he discovered free living cells in pond water in 1674. Then we have Robert Brown, he discovered in 1831. Then we have Sheldon and Szechuan, they have given their theory in 1838. Then we have Rudolf Virchow, they expanded that cell theory which was given by Sheldon and Szechuan in 1855. Then we have Knoll and Raska, they discovered this electron microscope in 1940. So these are the different scientists associated with with these different discoveries. As we know that this cell is a basic unit of life, it is a fundamental unit of life. These cells are very small. These are extremely small that we cannot see with the naked eyes. And living organisms some living organisms are made up of only one type of cell. Some are made up of many type of cells. So depending upon the structure of the living organism, these cells are present in their body. And if we talk about these cells, as I told you, they are so small that we cannot see with the naked eye. So we need some microscope to observe these cells. And that microscope is known as light microscope or compound microscope, which we generally use in our school. You people must have seen that your teachers are using that microscope in labs. That microscope is known as light microscope, or we call it compound microscope. So in that light or compound microscope, when we'll observe thin slice, then we'll see these cells which are small compartment like. But as I told you, these cells are made up of different components. And if we want to study those components, the electron microscope is required, which was discovered by Knoll and Rusk. Its magnification is extremely high so that we can easily see the components which are present inside us. Now, this is how cell was discovered and who were involved into it. As I told you, Robert Hooke, he discovered cell in 1665. Then under the light microscope. Then Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he observed living cells in the pond water. Then how this cell theory came into existence, because as I told you, there are the different features of the cell. So those features were compiled by Rudolf Virchow, and then he gave this theory. He gave the evidence of the cell division. So this was the microscope which was used by the scientists earlier. Now we have advanced version of this microscope which we are using in our labs. And if we want to see more and more in detail, we will use electron microscope. Now this theory, which is known as cell theory, which was given by Sheldon and Sechwan, they both proposed this cell theory, and this theory comprises of certain features or certain important points related to the cell. First is all life forms are made up of one or more. As I told you, living organisms are simple or complex. So depending upon their structure, they have different type of cells present in their body. If uh, very simple organism is there, it has only one cell. If complex body structure is there, it means they have more cells. Or cells only arise from pre-existing cells. It means whatever cells are present right now, they arise from the pre-existing cell. Whatever cells were present earlier, they, so some division, some kind of division takes place in those cells, which results in the formation of new cells. And cell is the smallest form of life. It means it is the smallest part of the life. It is so small, as I told you, which we cannot see with the naked eye. We need some high magnification power so that we can see this cell. For that, we have light or compound microscope, or we have electron microscope. Now, what kind of question can come in the exam? First is describe the microscopic structure of the cell. And in this question, you need to explain whatever structure was observed by Robert Hooke. As I told you, when he observed that thin slice of cell or thin slice of cork under the microscope, he observed that these cells are small compartment-like structures like this, which he compared with the honeycomb structure. And cell organelles are present in it. But they were not that much clear because light microscope which was used by them was not of that high magnification. So he said that cell is bounded by plasma membrane and organelles are present. This was the observation done by Robert Hooke, and this was a microscopic structure of the cell. Now, who discovered cell? Robert Hooke. Who proposed cell theory? Sheldon and Sechwan. They proposed cell theory. Although Rudolf Virchow, he explained cell theory later. Then we have cellular composition in different organisms. Cellular composition means how these cells are made up of, what kind of arrangement is there in these cells, what are the components, what are the things present in a cell which makes it complete. See, these cells are, each and every cell rather, is an independent unit. And why we call it as an independent unit? Because it exists independently in a body of an organism. So these cells are independent. They exist independent body. And these cells which are present in an organism, what kind of arrangement do they have? What are the components present in those cells? Let's study. First is non-cellular organisms. Non-cellular organisms are those that do not have any cell in their body organization. See, in these kind of organisms, cells are not present in. It means they, although we'll study about virus later in the forthcoming chapters of biology. So here, just see, like in virus, cells are not present, means they do not have a membrane and they are non-living until they reach inside the body of a living organism. It means if they are present outside the body, they are non-living, and they'll become living only when they enter into a living organism. So it's very difficult to recognize these viruses. That's the reason why it is difficult to make medicine for the for the diseases which are caused by viruses. So that's the reason, because they are non-living when they are present outside the body. But once they enter into the living organism or the living body, they'll take the energy and then they become living one. So non-cellular organisms are who do not have cells present in the body, because these cells exist independently, and the presence of these cells in an organism, it implies that, it shows that that particular organism is living in nature. Then we have unicellular organism. Uni means uni. Uni means one. It means if only one cell is present. See the miracle of nature. It means only one cell can do wonders. That one cell is capable of performing all the activities inside the body, whether it is respiration, whether it is reproduction, whether it is digestion. All the processes or all the activities are carried out by only single cell, and those organisms which have only one cell in their body, they are known as unicellular organisms. These unicellular organisms, they are quite very small, and their body structure is very simple. They do not have a very complex body structure the way we have. That's why only one cell is you know uh, is required, or it is sufficient to perform all the activity in their body. And examples of such kind of unicellular organisms are amoeba, Chlamydomonas, Euglena, Paramecium, Trypanosoma, and bacteria. So they all fall under the category of unicellular organism. And why we call them unicellular? Because only one cell is present in them. Then we have multicellular organism. Multicellular now means so many cells. Many cells are present in the body. They are just opposite to those of unicellular. Because in multicellular organism, the body structure is quite very complex. So they require so many cells to perform work differently. That's why these multicellular organisms contain so many cells in them. As I told you, multicellular organisms, their body structure is extremely complex. Like in case of human beings, we have different organs who perform different functions. Like for respiration, we have lungs. For thinking, we have nervous system. For controlling the entire body, we have our brain. And for digestion, we have stomach, liver. So many glands are present. As you can see, our body structure is so complex. That's why we need so many cells. We need due to this complexity, many cells are required so that they can perform function independently and helps in running all the systems of the body quietly and nicely. Examples of multicellular organisms are fungi, plants, and animals. All plants can come under this category, and all the animals. Now, all multicellular organisms have one common from a single cell, this xylem. So, here also in multicellular, according to the cell theory, the new cells arise from the pre-existing. So, those pre-existing cells are responsible for the formation of new cells. After, every 120 days, a new cell is formed. So, lifespan of one cell is approximately 120 days. Now, after this, we have different kind of cells present in our body. They are of different shape and sizes. If we talk about shape and sizes, we have nerve cell we call it, and its structure is somewhat like this, and it's considered to be the longest cell of our body. This is a nerve cell. Then we have RBCs. These are RBCs. Then we have WBCs, which we call white blood cells. Then we have muscle cells. So here, these are muscle cells. Then we have, this is known as nerve cell. Then we have columnar cells. Then in plants, they have tracheids, somewhat like this. So we have an n number of cells of different sizes and shapes. And if we talk about cell size, it is quite that much small that we cannot see with the naked eye. We need a microscope to see those cells. So depending upon the complexity of organization, it means depending on the complexity of the organism, cells can be divided into broadly two categories: prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic. It means if an organism is there, depending upon the complexity of that organism, these cells are broadly classified into two main categories. That is prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Now let's discuss about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells in detail. As we see prokaryotic cells, these cells are generally unicellular. It means they contain only one cell. And eukaryotic cells are those that are multicellular, as in case of human beings, animals, and plants. And if we are talking about prokaryotic cells, which have only one cell, that kind of cell, amoeba, paramecium, then trypanosoma. So these are the examples of unicellular. Then size of the cell is extremely small. Size of this cell, although size of this cell is also small, but in comparison with the prokaryotic, it is bigger, which is approximately 550 to 100. Then if we talk about prokaryotic, the nuclear region, here nuclear region, it means nucleus which is present in the center of the cell, that is poorly developed. It is not enclosed by any particular membrane. See, whatever organelles, with whatever components are present in a cell, they all are bounded by particular membrane. For example, we take an example of nucleus. This is a cell nucleus is present in the center. This entire nucleus is bounded by this membrane, which is known as nuclear membrane. But if we talk about prokaryotic cells, they do not have true nucleus, which means in the this is the structure of a nucleus, and inside the nucleus, DNA is present. And full form of DNA is deoxyribose nucleic acid, which is the genetic material of our. We'll study about this DNA in detail later. So this is a structure of a nucleus in which DNA is present, and this kind of structure will observe in eukaryotic. So this structure is present in eukaryotic. But if we talk about prokaryotic cell, here this nucleus is not bound by this nuclear membrane. DNA is present like this. This DNA is a thread-like structure. So in prokaryotic, true nucleus is not present. And this kind of a nucleus is known as true nucleus, which is bounded by membrane and the DNA is present inside it. Now, in prokaryotic cell, only a single chromosome is present, but in eukaryotic cell, more than one chromosome. In prokaryotic, nucleolus is absent. Here in this nucleus, one nucleolus is present. What is the function of this nucleolus? We'll study in detail later. And here this nucleolus is present. And in prokaryotic cell, membrane-bound organelles are absent. And in eukaryotic cell, membrane-bound organelles are. For example, suppose yes, this is mitochondria, and inside this mitochondria, this is the structure of a mitochondria. As you can see, this is the membrane which is present outside the mitochondria. So we have mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, nucleus. These are the different organelles which are present inside the cell. And all these organelles are bound by a particular membrane in eukaryotic cell. But in prokaryotic, no such membrane bound organelles are present. Now, in prokaryotic cell division occur by mitosis, and in eukaryotic, cell division occur by mitosis. And because in prokaryotic, only mitosis takes place, which, which is responsible for the growth of a cell. Then in prokaryotic cells, basically found in bacteria, blue-green panosoma, and in unicellular organisms, in amoeba. And eukaryotic cells are found in multicellular organisms, which are fungi, plants, and animals. So this is how prokaryotic cells are different from eukaryotic cells. And this difference is based on the complexity of the organism. If the body structure of an organism is complex, it means it has eukaryotic cell, and if the body organization is very simple, so that organism has a prokaryote. So I hope all these differences are clear to you. Now, it is extremely important question, and generally this question comes in 3 marks in how prokaryotic cells are different from eukaryotic. So in that question, you need to write all the differences which I have just discussed with you. So you need to write all the points. Depends on the marks, how many marks it contains, and if it has 2 marks or 3 marks, or sometime in exam they'll ask for 2 or 3 points only. So you have to answer accordingly. So this is how you will present your answer if you will write difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And the smallest cell is, if we are talking about smallest and the largest cell, the smallest cell is PPLO, or we call it mycoplasma. Which is pleuropneumona like organism. Full form of PPLO is pleuropneumonia like organism. This is the smallest cell and its size is approximately 0.1 to 0.5 micron. So this is the smallest cell, and the largest cell is ostrich cell. This is ostrich cell and its size is 17 centimeter or 13 centimeter in diameter. So this is 1 mark question. Name the smallest cell, and the answer is mycoplasma, or we call it PPLO, that is pleuropneumonia like organism, and the largest cell is ostrich, egg of ostrich. So these are the prokaryote structure of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. As you can see, in prokaryotic cell, as I told you, DNA is just lying in the cell. It is not enclosed by any particular membrane. But here, if you look at the eukaryotic cells, which are plant cell and animal, nucleus is bound by particular membrane. This is a membrane which is present. Here also, this nuclear membrane is present. And here, as you can see, ribosomes are just lying inside the cell. They do not have that much of organelles. If you look at plant cell and animal cell, organelles are present and they are well organized inside the cell. So this is how prokaryotic cell is different from eukaryotic cell. This is the structure of basically bacteria. This bacteria looks like this, and this is the DNA which is present inside the nucleus, and here DNA is present here like this. Here it is, but it is present inside the nucleus. And if you look at this prokaryotic cell, it is not present inside the nucleus. It is just, you can see, this is a thread-like structure. Now there are two type of cells basically. Eukaryotic cells are of two types: plant cell and animal cell. If we talk about plant body and the animal body, they are entirely different from each other. If you look at the structure of a plant and animal, so we can easily differentiate them. And there are some common points of differences between plant and animal. The animal shows locomotion, plant show and movement both, but plant only show locomotion. So what's the difference between locomotion and movement? There are two terms: locomotion and movement. Animal cell shows both, but plant cell shows only locomotion. If we move from one place to another, so we are showing movement here. When we are moving from one place to another, we are showing movement, and locomotion is a movement of particular part. So if we are talking about animal cell, they show both locomotion as well as movement. But plants cannot walk. They stand at their place, but their leaves, their branches, they can move. They show that movement. That kind of motion is known as locomotion. And plant body is simple in comparison with the animal. If we talk about plant cell or plant body, they do not have blood vessels the way we have. They do not have blood in them. We have blood vessel, arteries, veins and capillaries. But plant cells do not have. They do not have well developed structure the way we have. Our body is so beautifully designed that for each and every system is capable of performing particular function. Like for digestion, we have stomach, we have different glands. For respiration, we have lungs. And then for controlling the entire body and the glands, we have nervous system. So the animal body is well organized. If we are talking about plant cell, due to less complex body, the cell which is present in them, it is quite simple in comparison to the animal. If you look at the diagram of plant cell and animal cell, here you can see there cell wall is present, but in animal cell this cell wall is missing. In animal cell only cell membrane is present, or we call it plasma membrane. But here in plant cell wall or cell membrane, both are present, because plants are quite rigid. So due to that rigidity, they need some sort of support which is provided by this cell. Then in plant cell, Golgi apparatus are present. Here also Golgi apparatus are present. But here we have mitochondria. This is mitochondria. In place of mitochondria, they have chloroplast, or we call them dictyosomes. Then in animal cell, rough and smooth endoplasm are present. What are these organelles and their function? We'll study one by one in detail. So they also have endoplasmic reticulum, both smooth and rough. Now, if we look at the structure of animals, just look here, these vesicles, the vacuoles are present, but they are present small in number. But if we look at the plant cell, one central vacuole is present. This entire portion, this bigger portion, this portion is known as vacuole. But in animal cell, vacuoles are present in number. Sometimes they are not present. And here, so look at the structure of this plant cell and animal. Now, how plant cell and animals are different from each. If we look at the size of the plant cell and animal cell, plant cell size is quite large compared to animal. Then cell membrane is surrounded by cell wall. As I told you, in plant cell, cell wall is present, but in animal cell, this cell wall is absent. Only plasma membrane, or we call cell membrane, is present. Plant cell, chloroplasts are present. Plastids like chloroplasts, and but in animal cell, these plastids are absent. We do not have any such kind of plastid. Then vacuoles are very large in size. I told you vacuole. This is a vacuole. It is quite extremely large in size and it is present in the center. But if we look at the animal cell, these vacuoles are very small and they are not present in the center. In the center, nucleus is present. In plant cell, nucleus is not present in the center. As you can see, nucleus is present here. In animal cell, nucleus is present in the center. Then centrioles are absent in plant cells and centrioles are present in animal. So these are the difference between plant cell and cell. This is extremely important question according to exam point of view, and generally it comes in 2 or 3 marks. Now, why do animal cells do not have cell wall? It's a 2-mark question and very important question. So generally, difference between plant cell and animal cell can come in exam. Difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells can come in exam. Apart from that, this kind of reasoning question can also come, because as I told you, the animals do not have a rigid wall. This cell wall provides rigidity or hardness to the plant. So cell walls are incompatible with the way in which an animal moves. But if we talk about the plant cells, their body structure, they have a very rigid structure, and due to that rigid structure, they have this cell wall. But these animals can move freely. They show mobility, and the formation of the tissues in animals are quite different from that of the plants. That's why they do not have this cell wall. Due to their body design, they need flexibility in their body. They don't want any kind of rigidity in their body. That's why they do not have this cell. Now, first is plasma membrane, and where the most important and the first part of the cell is plasma membrane. The plasma membrane is the outermost membrane, or we call it cell membrane. It is the outermost covering of the cell. Its main function is it acts like a selectively permeable membrane. Selectively permeable membrane means it only allows the selective material to pass through. So that whatever material we are consuming, whatever food particles we are consuming, so all the out of those food particles or out of those substances which are present inside the body, all the particles are not required by the cell. Only certain material is required. So that material is sorted by this selectively permeable membrane. It only allows the selective material which is useful for the cell to enter inside with the help of process diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion is a process of movement of gaseous molecules from higher to lower concentration, and osmosis is of water molecules from higher to lower concentration. And this plasma membrane is of bilayer of lipid and protein. Lipid means fat. So this plasma membrane is a composition of fat and protein. This plasma membrane is the outermost covering which provides support, or which help or which protects the cell, and it acts like a selectively permeable membrane which so that it does not allow all the foreign materials to enter inside the cell. That's why we call it selectively permeable membrane. So I hope till here it is clear to you, and generally a 2-mark question can come. It is extremely important question, why plasma membrane is known as selectively permeable membrane? And the answer is does it allow only the selective material to pass through it? That's why it selectively permeable membrane. Permeable means permitted. It permit only selective particles to pass through the membrane. So till here, I think the entire topics are clear. In next class, I'll continue with the other organelles which are a part of a cell. So go through each and every topic which I have covered so far. Difference between prokaryotes, eukaryotes, plant cell, animal cell, structure of plant cell and animal cell, plasma membrane, and till then take care and goodbye. Thank you.